Those Bias Boys are back. We are ready to roll right here on FanDuel TV. Of course, for your friends at the Ringer Gambling Show, as the home stretch of the NBA season is upon us. I want to say that spring is in the air. It's not, because I live in New York. House can attest. Raheem, not necessarily. You're out in Las Vegas. But the boys got a lot to get to. We welcome in Joe House, Raheem Palmer, yours truly, JJ John Jastremski. And House, I want to start here. We had All-Star Weekend with the NBA. And we kind of brought this to the forefront in our little group chat that we have over the course of the weekend. You know, it's all the SNL stuff that's going on. It's an NBA All-Star Weekend that really has lost its luster over the last few years. And you and I, buddy, were sitting there, not exactly proclaimed hockey experts by any means. House, that was the best thing I gambled on. It was the best thing I watched all weekend, that USA-Canada game. I couldn't get enough.
Well, that is the beauty of hockey and those guys. And what a juxtaposition, JJ. You put side by side the NBA product where they have to create these outlandish incentives to get their super duper stars to participate. And you just put the national jersey, the national sweater on some boys from Canada and some boys from the USA. And the next thing you know, it's fisticuffs, and they are playing at an extraordinarily high level of hockey, both in terms of the intensity, but also the execution. The USA defense was absolutely outstanding that whole game, and they played with a speed and intensity, and everybody immediately was like, that's the thing to watch, because all we want as sports fans is authenticity, Dream. We want to see the dudes bringing it. God bless hockey. They really came up with something good here.
Well, I missed all the hockey festivities, but I'm just glad guys are bringing it. And I think that's the one thing we are not getting from the NBA right now. There's no effort. There's no care. There's no fight. We want to see the best play the best and compete. And we aren't seeing that right now in the NBA All-Star break.
Yeah, and Raheem, I'd love to be one of these, theorists. I know our buddy Simmons kind of tried to figure out a way to incentivize guys to get into the All-Star game, to have that reason for care. I feel like, Raheem, this is like a discussion that the three of us could have year after year after year. They have tried certain tweaks. To House's point, they have thrown in financial incentives. Whatever they've tried within the NBA, it has not helped the product. It's been a tough sell. Like, you're an NBA guy. House is an NBA guy. I love the NBA. I grew up, and I don't want to sound like the old man yelling on a cloud, but yes, there was a time where, as a kid, I used to look forward to watching the All-Star game every year. Raheem, didn't miss a minute in years past. This year, couldn't wait for it to be over. Not going to lie.
I went grocery shopping during the NBA All-Star game. I made sure I got some food for the house, and the refrigerator is stocked, so I didn't see any of it.
The crazy thing is, JJ, they actually had a format that was kind of interesting, and guys were motivated, especially the rising star guys. Now, I understand all the complaints about it, whatever, but I think the players were prepared to play. Every mother effing time that I turned it on, it was some kind of nonsense with Hart or Kevin Hart, or some kind of garbage with TNT, some music. I could just play the basketball. Just play the basketball. If it's the basketball All-Star game, play the basketball. I don't want to have to tune in 15 different times to find out when the slivers of time are that they're actually playing the basketball, JJ.
It's totally fair. Now, fellas, as we transition from All-Star Weekend, over, done with, hallelujah for that, basketball, full slate of games on Thursday, a couple of very interesting and telling games, I think, this coming weekend. One in Boston involving the Knicks and the Celtics. The Knicks take on Cleveland, another interesting matchup. I want to start here, House, when it comes to the league as a whole. I think the two of us, the three of us, can't even count. That's what happens when I'm going through the All-Star break doldrums. You look at the East and you look at the West and you say, wow, there's a clear-cut front runner. Oklahoma City profiles as that in the Western Conference. Boston, of course, despite Cleveland's great regular season, profiles as that with their pedigree and the fact that they're the reigning defending NBA champions. But if we go back to last year, House, it felt like we were on a Boston-Denver collision course. Despite the Denver Nuggets not being the championship team that they were, it still was the Joker. You still had your questions about OKC. You still had your questions about Minnesota. And I think if we were having this conversation at this time last year, you'd say, wow, odds on it's going to be Boston and Denver. We know that didn't happen. Boston held up their end of the bargain. Dallas came out of nowhere, had a great second half, went on to the NBA Finals. So I ask you this, sir. If there's going to be a party crasher, and this year the party crasher would be somebody other than Boston or Oklahoma City, who do you have profiled as that party crasher?
It's Denver. I think Denver is poised right now in the West because they got healthy at the right time. They've been on a nice winning streak as they arrived upon this All-Star break. And, some of those young guys getting some of that time has actually, paid dividends. Now, here's the thing. Joker is averaging a 30-point triple-double. Like the best season ever in the history of the NBA by a big man. And it seems like it's sustainable. And the biggest turnaround by far, it is like they acquired a player, for this season, is Jamal Murray's turnaround. He's back. Jamal Murray, that guy, he dropped 55 on the last game right before they went to break. So the stuff is kind of coming together. The version of this team, they couldn't get it last season because of health. And because in retrospect, and Malone said this at the end of the season, they pressed too hard to try and get the 1 seed in the Western Conference, and it cost them. I mean, they were exhausted down the stretch, and they got, run out the gym in the second round, really by virtue of fatigue, Dream. So I like Denver out of the West. I like the old heads. I like the season that Joker's having. If they're healthy, that would be my pick.
So I agree with House. I think there's 2 teams in the West who could crash the party, and I think it's the Denver Nuggets. And if you look at them, they're 13-1 to win the NBA title, and it's the Los Angeles Clippers.
The Clippers. Wow. Okay. Interesting, Raheem.
If you look at the Los Angeles Clippers, you're talking about a team that has a top 5 defense. They're second in the defensive rating, allowing 109 points per 100 possessions. And if Kawhi Leonard is healthy, and he's looked like he's able to move. He just looks a little rusty right now. If he's able to just raise the ceiling of that offense, which I think he can, and James Harden, he is a system in itself. And you look at Norm Powell, he's a guy who's a 6th man of the year candidate. If they can put that offense together, I think they have a real shot at making some noise in the Western Conference. But I got to remind everybody, this Oklahoma City Thunder team is a juggernaut on a level that we haven't really seen before. They have the best SRS of all time. They have 44 wins and are on pace for 67 wins. Their SRS is better than the 96 Bulls. Their SRS is better than the 71 Bucks. Their SRS is better than the 2016-2017 Golden State Warriors with KD and Steph. And it's better than the 73-9 Warriors. So they're performing like the best team of all time. And I think this team is very similar to what we just saw in the NFL. The Philadelphia Eagles, because despite the models and all the numbers saying how good they are, it feels like people still don't believe in them yet.
It's interesting, Raheem, and I think the reason House we're seeing that is because it's still a younger team, and I think a lot of folks who maybe have questions about Oklahoma City just go back to what happened last year in the postseason against the Dallas Mavericks, where they're trying to figure out, well, what went wrong in that particular series. So it's interesting. Raheem threw out 2 teams in the Western Conference. He also mentions these metrics involving Oklahoma City and where they profile, hey, greatness, a lot of different ways. Yet no teams in the Eastern Conference, House. I guess that just speaks to, hey, I don't like the Knicks. I don't like the Cavs' chances of going and beating the Celtics. Is that it, Raheem?
So I don't like the Knicks. I just have to be honest with you. I just think when you look at the 2 games against the Boston Celtics, they lost them by a combined 50 points. That shows you that the gap between those 2 teams is very far. Now, I do like the Cleveland Cavaliers, but I still just trust the Boston Celtics more. And ultimately, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to have to show me that they can beat this Boston Celtics team in order for me to come up off of my position.
Yeah, I agree with Dream. I will say, in this time between the Super Bowl and these All-Star festivities, probably a little bit too much time for me to be on the FanDuel Sportsbook looking at combinations and thinking about where's value, because one of the things that I have done already is bet on a whole bunch of different combinations for NBA finalists. The Cleveland Cavaliers against the Denver Nuggets, 26-1.
Ooh,
I kind of like that. You know what I mean?
I don't think Cleveland's getting there, but at that number, House,
right.
I like it.
And it creates some hedge possibilities on kind of both sides of it. But I do think Cleveland, to me, they are legit, and they can give Boston a run because of their size. We have to see it. They have to have both Mobley and Jared Allen healthy for this playoff run. But they got stronger on defense. We talked about this, post-trade deadline. I love the addition of DeAndre Hunter. They can defend all the way out to the perimeter, and that's the formula. You better be able to do that against Boston. But I do think they have a size advantage, and that's part of why I think Cleveland is live. I agree with Dream about the Knicks. The Knicks are fine. Like, to me, they're on a kind of like a 3-year run here, and they're in year 1 of 3 because they have all these guys under contract. They just don't have the size. They have to have a solution for this Mitchell Robinson problem. And I think they will get there, but they can't. It's not going to work out this year, to me, JJ.
Well, and we'll see come Sunday, where the Knicks will be taking on the Celtics again. And to Raheem's point, they got absolutely slaughtered in the first 2 matchups. And the way the Eastern Conference bracket looks, with Cleveland basically running away with the 1 seed, and with the Knicks having a sizable gap between who's at 4 and who's at 5, well, what does that mean? That means in the second round of the playoffs, barring something unforeseen, it would be the Knicks and it would be the Celtics, which would be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of back and forth between the two hated rivals, the city. I haven't had Knicks-Celtic playoff series in a while, but there's no way in the world I'm picking the Knicks to win that series unless they show me, hey, they can actually go and match up with the Celtics. So that's fair. Raheem, that Denver price, House threw it out there. I'm not invested yet. I think that's a juicy number. What you get, House? 13-1, 14-1?
For which?
To win a title.
Oh, for Denver, they're 13-1 on the FanDuel Sportsbook
I love it
right now.
I love it. I want to get involved. Good investment, bad investment?
I don't think it's a bad investment. I haven't got involved yet. I still kind of want to wait things out, but I do think it's a solid investment because our very own Brian Barrett, he says the Denver Nuggets are the one team that he's scared of as a Boston Celtics fan, and I think that's true.
Listen, when you got the Joker on your side, you can totally understand why. We got a lot cooking in this Thursday edition of East Coast Bias. We will get you ready for the Thursday slate of NBA action. And there's a team that's taken on the Boston Celtics that has its star player and his lovely lady going on vacation. Not exactly getting a whole lot of love in the city of brotherly love. No pun intended there. Can they be a team that can salvage their way into the postseason? The boys are in on the Warriors to go and get themselves to the postseason. What does it mean for Phoenix? Done? Nothing to discuss? We got a lot more to discuss. Boys are coming right back. Welcome back to East Coast Bias. Thankfully, a full slate of NBA action in addition to the big hockey game. And a little bit later on, we will try to get some insight on the hockey game. I mean, listen, me and Joe House try to figure out what's what. Not exactly what we need. We love you, House. You love me. We need help with the hockey.
We need help. That's right.
We need help desperately. So Pete Jensen from NHL.com hopefully is going to give us a winner and some goal scorers and all that good stuff a little bit later on. NBA action tonight. Raheem, Sixers. One of the most, if not the most disappointing team that the league has to offer this year. They're 20-34 on the year. Paul George on vacation. He is now becoming the butt of all jokes in the city of brotherly love. And they are an 8-point dog against Boston. Game and the rest of the season aside for Philly here. Can they salvage anything here moving forward, Dream? Or is the rest of this campaign a total lost cause in your eyes?
So the interesting thing is that when you look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, the Philadelphia 76ers right now, they are 11th in the Eastern Conference. And you look at the Chicago Bulls, they only have a 1.5 game lead over the Philadelphia 76ers. The Miami Heat, they can't score at all without Jimmy Butler. Now, they might be a little bit too far ahead of the Philadelphia 76ers, but it's easy to see the Sixers being able to creep into that 9 or 10 spot and make it to the play-in tournament. However, the Sixers have just been terrible all year long. You're talking about a team which has the second worst cover rate in the league. If you look at the Sixers right now against the spread, they are 19, 33, and 2. And when you look at the numbers with Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey on the floor, it's not like they're lighting the world on fire. So it's very hard to trust this Philadelphia 76ers team. And they have real tank possibilities because they've just been snake bitten all year in terms of injuries. So I do think they can make it into the play-in tournament, but I also think there's a possibility that this team just throws in the towel and starts to tank.
Yeah, the interesting thing with them is that they lose their first round pick this upcoming year if it's 7 or worse. It's only top 6 protected. And, you know, I've been waiting any minute now for the announcement that Joel Embiid is done for the season, which honestly probably should have been the announcement at the outset of the season rather than the nonsensical back and forth. But you touched on it. And JJ, you talked about Paul George being the butt of the jokes. I mean, butt is right because he's been ass all season long. That man has 9 total games of 20 points or more for the contract that he pulled out of
stealing money. He's stealing money.
It's an outrage. It's an outrage, and the people of Philadelphia have good reason, good cause for being upset with the situation there and out of with his effort, because really that was supposed to be the thing that was going to bridge the gap while Embiid was getting himself healthy. Now they did have injuries befall both Paul George and Embiid. I mean, that happens. We understand it. We know the injury history there, but it's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. And, you know, the people of Philadelphia are showing their lack of enthusiasm for what's occurred here. They do have a Super Bowl. Thank God for them. But the point is, I don't have any, you know, there's just no interest for me in betting on the Sixers. Like, if they don't care, I don't care. And I'm not going to put my money into it.
So the Sixers are plus 225 to make the postseason.
Yes, they are.
And for me, I don't know if I'm interested in going that route, but I don't buy this Miami Heat team. They're ninth in the Eastern Conference. I think the future to play there is to play the Miami Heat, to miss the postseason at plus 205. I think that's the best value on the board right now.
And it's interesting. Philly to make the playoffs is at plus 225. To make the East play-in tournament, they are juiced heavily at minus 470. So, no thanks. No thanks.
Way. Steve's point about the Heat, though, is right.
Yeah.
Because the Heat are absolutely, that's a tankathon. That team, that nobody leads the league in giving up double-digit leads more than the Heat. The Heat, in the stretch leading up to the All-Star break, gave up leads of over 20 points at or more than 20 points twice, and they got, you know, busted out. They lost to the Nets, the Celtics, the Thunder, and the Mavericks, and they had sizable leads in 2 of those games. That team is headed to you know, rebuildville.
Yeah, it's a lost season. And now you're finally seeing a reckoning, long overdue, quite frankly, in Miami. Okay. The Phoenix Suns house. And you guys were pretty spot on with a whole lot of the picks that you gave for the over-unders at the beginning of the year. Listen, we all like a mulligan. My life is a mulligan. I like a mulligan anytime I'm on a golf course. I'm giving you the mulligan on Phoenix. There was a case to be made for them having success this year. It has flamed out. It has been a colossal disappointment as they're 2 under 500. They're a 2.5-point dog tonight in San Antonio. To me, if you're asking me point blank, who do I feel better about down the stretch? It's this San Antonio team that added De'Aaron Fox, that has incentive to play, that feels like they're, you know, at the beginning of starting to build something, as opposed to a Phoenix team where it's like, yeah, at some point in time, this baby is getting blown up. And it's just, is it going to be this summer? Is it going to be next fall? Whatever the case may be. I see San Antonio and Phoenix not only tonight, House, but moving forward. I'm way more bullish on the Spurs the rest of this year. You got to be.
This San Antonio team, I think, is poised to try and make a run. Like they were sitting at 18-16 right around New Year's, Christmas time, and then they went on a swoon because their defense fell off a cliff. But the addition of De'Aaron Fox, I think that should put some enthusiasm into it. And I will tell you this, I have a best bet for us today. I want to mention this man's name right now. Stephon Castle showed us something over All-Star Weekend, and that dude is here to ball. And I think that it will reflect well on his candidacy as a Rookie of the Year. I do think that San Antonio is going to try and make a point. I love them tonight against Phoenix in Austin, trying to show out for the good people of Austin. Bill Simmons in the house. I mean, you know, I'm on this San Antonio team, Dream.
So my model has this San Antonio minus 2.3. The market is at San Antonio minus 2.5. So I think we're right on market here. I'm not seeing any value on either side. So I'm going to stay away from this one, but I do think the Spurs are obviously a team on their way up, and the Suns are on a team on their way down. And it's unfortunate because I wish that, you know, FanDuel Sportsbook, they offered two-way markets on, you know, to the play-in, because it feels like this Suns team is going to miss the play-in tournament altogether. Right now, they're minus 120 to make the West play-in. Can we get some two-way markets on this? Because I would like to bet on them missing it.
Well, and how about the fact, House, that Phoenix is plus 300 to make the playoffs? Doesn't that tell you all you need to know?
It tells
plus
you all
300.
you need to know. It's exactly right.
And I'm proud of us, guys, because we got the better of this Golden State number as I stare at the odds to make the Western Conference playoffs right now as we speak. Clippers are at minus 430. Minnesota's at minus 400. House, Golden State's up to minus 134. I like 118 a lot better than what we got, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just saying.
Well, they lost that game to Dallas, and that's why. They had a nice split. They did lose a game to Dallas, but then they got a win. But Dream, I'm interested in this because I was looking at this. Their first two games after the break. We're talking about the Golden State Warriors and their chances to make the playoffs. JJ just mentioned minus 134. They're at the Kings Friday night, tomorrow night. And then they're home against the Mavericks. And I'm wondering if you get a better price, because those are two absolutely crucial games to their fortunes, the playoff outcome. Is it better playing the money line and doing a little money line rollover, bet them on the money line Friday night, because they'll either be a tiny dog in Sacramento or it'll be very close. Maybe they'll be a tiny favorite. And then they go home and they'll be maybe another tiny favorite against Dallas, right? Maybe you play the money line in those two games, because whatever this minus 134 come Monday, if they win both those games, it's going to be much pricier.
Yeah, I think I agree with that assessment. I'm looking at my model right now. I have Sacramento minus 1.5 in that game. And then when I look at that game against Dallas, my model still has like Luka numbers still in it, but I actually have Dallas as a slight favorite in that game, but it's pretty obvious that the Warriors would probably be favorites in that game. So I see where you're coming from.
So we hit on the two big TNT games for Thursday. We gave you some odds for the playoffs. Quickly, House, this on the FanDuel Sportsbook website. Simmons put this up. Warriors, T-Wolves, Pistons all to make it at plus 160. Yay or nay?
It's a yay. It's a strong yay. It's a happy yay. It's a, let's go cash yay. I really do like the idea of this Golden State team. I think the whole bet, this is just a bet. You've created a situation where you have plus money odds on Golden State making the playoffs, because I feel very good about the other two teams. I really don't think either one of those is going to be a sweat. Barring injury, and I'll knock on wood just so the NBA gods are listening to me. Barring injury, I like both Detroit and Minnesota. So this is plus 160 for Golden State to make the playoffs. And the return of Kuminga, I like the idea of Jimmy Butler, the impact he might have on Kuminga.
Yeah, I think this is a yay. If you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, I believe that they have the sixth easiest schedule. And obviously, I think they're in prime position to make a second half run. You look at the Golden State Warriors. They have the ninth easiest schedule. And obviously, I think Jimmy Butler has added an element to the Warriors that they haven't had. They've always had three-point shooting with Steph Curry. And I know this three-point shooting outside of him hasn't been great. But the thing that Jimmy Butler can add is the ability to get to the free throw line. And that's something that the Warriors truly haven't had. So I think that makes them much more dangerous offensively. And then I think the Pistons, right now, they're 2.5 games up on the Orlando Magic. I love the basketball that they're playing. They should be able to make the postseason.
They've been a feel-good story all year. Finally, long overdue in Detroit. You know, we were almost a year early on kind of predicting their renaissance. I remember last year we were in on the over. Didn't necessarily work out as far as them being a playoff team. Now I think you're kind of seeing the fruits of the labor. You know, they've done a good job of getting their young guys up to speed, complementing it with a veteran here or there. I like where the Pistons are at, growing in the right direction, no doubt. I like that at plus 162. Before we transition, gentlemen, I gave you the two big games of the day. Raheem, Clippers, Bucks, Memphis, Indy, Orlando, Atlanta. On the rest of the Thursday card, is there anything that really stands out to you?
Yes, I like the Memphis Grizzlies. To me, this is my best bet. I don't know what. I don't know why this line is what it is. It just doesn't make sense to me. My model actually makes this closer to 4. They're only laying 2 on the road. Right now, at the time that we're recording this, I'm not sure if John Morant is going to play, but I don't care because John Morant is no longer their best player. Jaren Jackson Jr. is their best player. And I'm looking at a Memphis Grizzlies team right now, which is 6th in offensive rating and 7th in defensive rating. To me, they're clearly the better team here. And I like them with or without John Morant. I'm going to lay the 2 points with the Memphis Grizzlies.
JJ, I, of course, endorse this. I can't believe it. It's literally the game that I had circled in red.
Was this the best bet that we spoiled?
No, I have a couple other best bets, fortunately. But in terms of the slate, I was like, hold on a second. 2 points. For some reason, the market has been sleeping on this Memphis team. Memphis has been extraordinary against the East. They're 16-4 straight up and against the spread against the East. And I think it's because they're very hard to plan for. They're a different kind of animal than what they've been in seasons past. And every single time they come out with an intensity that teams aren't prepared for. I think that that 2 point line is incredible. And look, the money line's minus 130 on a 2 point favorite. So that the market anticipates Memphis handling its business here.
Well, boys, we'll be making that a family play because I also will be on the Memphis Grizzlies in that spot. Defense optional, as we know, with the Indiana Pacers. I know Indiana played well going into the All-Star break, but that to me strikes as a team that, hey, offense might not be well-oiled machine coming out first game after a little bit of a break. Give me the team that's going to travel defensively, and I'll go and grab that spot any day of the week. All right, we got a lot more coming your way. We'll have Pete Jensen to help us out with the Four Nations finale with the U.S. and Canada a little bit later on. But when we come back, it's going to be an East Coast bias grab bag. I am going to throw some questions the way of our two gentlemen and get some quick, fire-burning takes. Might be in a world that's near and dear to Joe House. It may be a world that's not so near and dear to Raheem Palmer. That said, we're going to get their opinions on it. This should be fun. We're debuting it. Hot takes, grab bag style, coming up next. It's time for the East Coast bias grab bag hot take style. Raheem, I will start with you. This is on a variety of different topics that I think is going to be somewhat near and dear to your heart, or maybe it's not near and dear to your heart, because I know you each pretty well. Fact or fiction, Raheem? The UConn Huskies, who Joe House bet in each of the last 2 years to win the NCAA tournament, will be outed before the Sweet 16. Fact or fiction?
That is a fact. 100% fact.
See? House, I was texting with Raheem last night. We're watching the Villanova-UConn game. Raheem texts me, goes, UConn stinks. And they found a way to win. So it's crazy that we're talking about them in this sense after they found a way to win. But the team, House, that we've seen each of the last 2 years run amok through the NCAA tournament, despite the head coach and a couple of guys back, It's not the same team. So, House, you're going to see 50-1. You're going to see 55-1. Don't do it. Right, Raheem? Don't do it.
I mean, right now, you're talking about a team which is 36 in net rating on KenPom. And I think that says it all about this UConn team. And if you look at the game against Seton Hall the other day, they were up 7 and they just blew it. So it's just like this team can't be trusted. Now, the one thing I will say is that a lot of times these teams, they get into the conference tournament and they catch fire. So you definitely want to pay attention to the conference tournaments before you kind of make these definitive statements. But right now, I think this team stinks.
Joe House, we are about a month into the golf season. And I am now going to take Scotty Scheffler and exclude him from the conversation because he is Scotty Scheffler. Who is the most impressive golfer that you've seen in the first month of action other than Scotty?
It's the guy who just won at Torrey Pines in a big boy event, a big boy venue. His name is Ludwig Oberg, and I think he is poised to do big things this coming season, JJ. He is right this second 12-1 to win the Masters. You will recall that he was one shot from the lead behind Scotty Scheffler as he arrived upon the back nine on Sunday at the Masters last season. This dude has a game aplenty. He played in the Ryder Cup and won the Ryder Cup before he played in his very first major. That tells you his pedigree. That tells you that folks see the talent that he has, and he's just a bad man.
So what you're telling me, Joe House, is Mr. Aberg should be somebody I consider for the Players and the Masters over the next 2 months.
Absolutely, positively, yes.
Juicy. Absolutely juicy indeed. Okay, Raheem Palmer. The Boston Red Sox, who just brought in Alex Bregman, that have Crochet and they have Buer. And yes, Rafael Devers is complaining about not wanting to be at third base and wanting to be at third base and Bregman not being at third base. You get my drift. They got a lot of talent on that team. They are the biggest threats to my beloved New York Yankees in the American League. Fact or fiction?
Yes, that's a fact. And I even right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook, I think you got to sprinkle something on the Boston Red Sox. Plus 440 to win the AL East. You look at the fact that Juan Soto is gone. And the Red Sox, they finally added some guys. And they were in the playoff mix last year. I think this year they make a leap. So let's take a shot on that.
Well, guys, I'll take a step further. House, you know this is painful for me to do because I am not exactly going to be waving Boston Red Sox pom-poms. I have already on the FanDuel Sportsbook app bet the Red Sox over 84.5 wins for the season. I will not, Raheem, get involved on their price to win the AL East just because I don't want to be rooting for them to go win the AL East. You know, it could be a little bit of a conflict of interest with my guys. I'm not going to do that. But 84.5 for the Red Sox, I am in. And they have improved starting pitching. They have a manager. They have a potent, athletic lineup. That's a dangerous, dangerous team in the American League. Okay, Joe House, final one for you. Since you just witnessed Jaden Daniels go and pull off the best rookie season a quarterback has ever had, are you more willing to invest in, and you can tell me 3 choices, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or none of the above for the first overall pick as of right now in mid to late February?
I think Cam Ward makes sense. I think for what Tennessee is trying to do, it doesn't seem like there's any scuttlebutt out there that they're going to try and trade out of the number 1 slot. And he's a big boy. I like Cam Ward. I think that, it's early, so we don't have the full treatment of, what his physical and mental attributes look like. But I thought he was kind of awesome this most recent season for that Miami team. I'm fine with him number 1 overall. I do think he's the kind of guy that you could build around, JJ.
Don't overthink it if you're the Tennessee Titans. Makes too much sense. The bigger-bodied Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick, need a quarterback, go from there. I'm proud of you guys. You handled my takes, my questions. You had no idea what was coming. You passed with flying colors. Now, Raheem, you gotta get me. Let's go here.
The Milwaukee Bucks will make it out of the second round in the postseason.
Ooh. I'm going to go fiction because there's too much uncertainty about their first-round matchup, and they're going to be dogs against Cleveland. Now, I'm telling you, boys, if it's Cleveland-Milwaukee in the second round, Raheem, I'm going to be very tempted to take the Bucks. Remember I said this. I'm putting this on record. If it's Milwaukee and Cleveland in the second round, I'm going to be very tempted to take Milwaukee. But I'm going to say at this point in time, Raheem, it's fiction. Fair?
So I got a stat for you. If you look at the Milwaukee Bucks this season against teams who are top 10 in net rating, they are 2-12 straight up, and they have a league worst 30th in net rating at -8.
So you're telling me that is a stone cold fiction in your eyes?
There's a chance that they can make the leap because it's possible if Dame can, capture his old self and Giannis can be Giannis, they might have the two best players in a postseason series. But based on how they performed this year, I think they're dead as fried chicken.
House is out. House has no interest.
Well, here's the problem. If they had Chris Middleton, I think they would have been super live, and I would have tried to get invested in some ways. But what they did, this trade of acquiring Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton is an abomination. Because Kyle Kuzma, that dude is just out there to collect checks. He is not helping that team win any basketball games in any way, shape, or form. He's happy to just take his money and keep on buying his giant fashion sweaters and show up, in whatever fit he's in the pregame tunnel. That's what that man is about. He is not about winning basketball, and I feel bad for the good people of Milwaukee.
Boys, Pete Jensen at NHL.com is going to help us with the Four Nations, best bets, all that still to come. Welcome back to East Coast Bias. I'm giving House and Raheem a little reprieve because my Saturday night, the highlight was the Four Nations, United States, Canada game that was off the rails from Jump Street. You got fights in the first 10 seconds of the game. You had a riveting finish, and now we get the rematch Thursday in Boston for the title. So to help us out and hopefully give us a couple winners here, Pete Jensen, NHL.com, buddy of mine, nice enough to join us. Pete, let's start here. Are you surprised with how big of a success and a boom this little tournament has become?
This has definitely exceeded my expectations. I was excited after almost a decade of no best on best hockey, right? To see guys like McKinnon, Makar, McDavid, Crosby all on the ice together. There was some intrigue for me with that. I knew that the casual fans in the U.S. would probably get going at some point in this tournament, but right from the jump, that Sweden-Canada game that went to overtime, I was like, wow, this is the best hockey game I've watched in quite some time. And then I think it got one up a bit, right, on Saturday night in prime time, especially with the NBA All-Star festivities going on. I feel like the Hockey Four Nations face-off tournament kind of stole the show of the weekend.
Listen, it sure did. I made some money on it. I was very happy about that for a change with the United States taking care of business. Now that we have the rematch, Pete, let's start with the line. You look on FanDuel as we speak, you're basically getting even money for the United States to go and beat Canada again. It's going to be on U.S. ice. You think that line's fair? You think it's where it should be? Basically a coin flip between these two. You agree with that?
So much talent on both sides of this matchup. I would not be surprised at all if it went to overtime. We've seen 2 of the 6 games in this tournament go to overtime, and you can bet on that if you go with the 3-way money line. That's something you could kind of sit back, enjoy the theater. If one team responds, whether it's high scoring or low scoring, if one team responds to tie it and it goes to that 3-on-3 riveting overtime, then you'll be sitting pretty there. So that's an angle that I've seen just because there were 2 games that Sweden was involved in, one against Canada. They both went to overtime. And then even when Canada played Finland in their last game, got a little dicey at the end, and Crosby had to put in an empty netter to avoid it going to overtime. So that's what I'm kind of looking at here.
Love an overtime bet. You're right. It is a fun one to have. If indeed we get another classic and then you get that extra period, you can go and cash in along the way. Okay. The last time we saw these teams, low-scoring game, Pete. Intense, low-scoring type of affair. Total for this one is at 5.5. You think we're going to see more scoring later on this evening?
I wouldn't be surprised at all to see it go over 5.5 because first off, Cale Makar is going to be playing in this game. He did not play in the first matchup. Cale Makar has won almost every trophy in the book. Conn Smythe, Rookie of the Year, Norris Trophy as top defenseman. And, he's looking to make an impact here after Canada kind of got embarrassed to an extent on home ice against the U.S. on Saturday. So I'm looking for him to maybe uptick the offense. I think you saw a response from Canada. All of those guys had multi-point games with Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon against Finland the other day. So I'm looking at some response here from Canada. And then I think the U.S., except for missing Charlie McAvoy with that injury, unfortunately, they could have Quinn Hughes in the mix. And it sounds like they most likely will have Matthew and Brady Tkachuk and Austin Matthews. So their top three guns are all goal scorers and offensive flair to boot.
You mentioned goal scorers. So FanDuel has, of course, to score a goal at any moment throughout the 3 periods. Maybe it's an extra period, whatever the case may be. And it's hard to kind of pinpoint, Pete, who's going to go and score a goal, especially when you have talent like you have on both sides for the United States and Canada, all-star caliber players, trying to figure out who's going to get the majority of the playing time. So you're getting, even for the top guys, plus 2-1, which is pretty crazy to think about as far as goal scorer, making that sort of value, finding that sort of, incentive there to, get involved with somebody at 2-1, 4-1, 8-1, whatever the case may be. Give me a goal scorer we like. Give me 1 or 2 for the United States. Give me 1 or 2 for Canada.
Sure. I like Brady Tkachuk, assuming he plays. Keep an eye on that, but it sounds like he will. I mean, these guys are animals out there,
warriors,
right? It's ridiculous.
Unless they can't walk or maybe there's a bone broken. Even if there is a bone broken, they might want to be out there on the ice for this one. Excellent point.
Totally. And Brady has never played in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So this is his Super Bowl here, like you saw on Saturday. So I'm excited for him to play in these meaningful games. Plays on the line with Matthew Tkachuk, his brother, and Jack Eichel. So really like that spot for him. And then I think that Jack Hughes has been a little quiet in this tournament. No goals on 10 shots. He has the most shots on goal among players in the tournament who have yet to score. So Jack Hughes is due. Especially, man, if Quinn Hughes is on the ice together with him, if they can finagle something to get this guy to be able to play, he's probably the second best defenseman in the league. So it'd be cool to see the Tkachuk brothers and then potentially even the Hughes brothers. On Canada's side, I think that Mark Stone and Braden Point are ice in their veins finishers. You've seen it at different points in this tournament. Don't overlook the impact that those two guys could have on the final result. We've seen it many times for them, respectively, right? Like Point for the Tampa Bay Lightning through the years, winning cups, and then Mark Stone won the cup and has been a postseason performer all through the years and has a great international track record as well.
Pete, it's wild, and you learn something new every day. I did not realize that FanDuel had on its little tab for this matchup shots on goal. You mentioned Jack Hughes not being able to find pay dirt. I'm seeing 3+ shots on goal at -118. I feel like that's something I got to be all over here.
Yeah, and the number has shortened on a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, who leads the tournament and tied with his brother for the tournament lead in shots on goal with 11. Matthew Tkachuk leads the league in the 4 nations in high danger shots as well. I mean, these are guys that are going to put up 3 or 4 shots on goal, even in a loss for the U.S. probably. So I don't mind that play as well. We cover that in fantasy all the time on the Fantasy on Ice podcast, shot props. And I feel like the Tkachuk brothers lead the list. And usually it's at around 3 shots per game, but you could even, go venture into over 4 shots on goal per game for each of those guys. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them both hit.
All right, Pete, final one. United States, Canada, it's -110. The United States beating the Canadians for the second time in a week?
That was my pre-tournament pick, the United States to win. And the reason why is I think Jordan Binnington, the goalie for Canada, is the biggest X factor in this game because so much talent on both sides. I favor Connor Hellebuck in that matchup any day of the week compared to Binnington. Binnington's been really good, better than I expected so far. I will lean with Hellebuck for the end result, and the U.S. is on home ice at TD Garden in Boston. But, man, is this going to be a battle, and I would love to see it go to overtime. I'm picking the U.S.
It is going to be a rowdy scene up in Beantown. The United States, Canada, second time in a week. And hopefully, Pete Jensen, it will live up to what we saw Saturday night north of the border. We appreciate a couple of minutes on East Coast Bias. For anybody who's looking to find those winners, once you get to the second half of the NHL season and come playoff time, where can we find you, pal?
Yeah, so we do twice a week NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast. We cover the betting stuff. We cover fantasy and props and everything like that. Futures plays, like you could look for this tournament, right? Some MVP contenders like Sidney Crosby, maybe even a dark horse like Zach Werenski. And then once we get to the playoffs, baby, that's our bread and butter. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check us out.
P. Jensen, buckle up, buddy. Enjoy the game later on tonight, and we'll catch up once we hit the postseason. Keep up the good work, all right, bud?
You too, JJ. Appreciate you having me on. And yeah, this is like the best theater I feel like a hockey fan could have imagined coming into this tournament, this Thursday night rematch with U.S. and Canada. Can't wait.
Buckle up indeed. We got a lot more coming your way. Some winners for the Thursday card within the NBA. What to look ahead for in the weekend. All that more. House and Raheem are back. East Coast Bias. Right after this. Best bet time. The floor is yours, Joe House. Take it away.
Well, I foreshadowed this a little bit. I absolutely adore Stephon Castle at plus 110 on the FanDuel Sportsbook to win Rookie of the Year. He just had his coming out party over All-Star Weekend. He was the most valuable rising star. His dunk contest performance was legit. And I think across the board, the way that San Antonio is poised, they are going to push this man up. Average 18 points in the 15 games leading up to the All-Star break. That's what you need to win Rookie of the Year. Plus money for Stephon Castle. Get on it right now.
Like it. Dream, what are we thinking?
We already gave you guys Miami Heat plus 225 to miss the postseason. We already gave you guys Memphis Grizzlies -2 against the Indiana Pacers. We're going to go with some boxing here. We're going to go with Arthur Better Beef -134. I think he made the adjustment in that first fight against Dimitri Bivol, and I think you're going to see him continue to pour it on and show why he's one of the best fighters in the game right now. We also got another boxing match. We go with Callum Smith against Joshua Buatsi. Callum Smith is plus 164. I think he's super live. And then I'm going to give you guys one more basketball one. I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Clippers. You can take them plus 1.5. You could take them on the money line against the Milwaukee Bucks. Like I told you guys earlier on, the Bucks have struggled against teams top 10 in net rating. So let's go with the Clippers.
Like that Clipper play, Raheem. I'm giving you 2 in the NBA. I mentioned San Antonio at -2.5. Again, I don't like where the Phoenix Suns are at this particular point in time. So I'll lay the 2.5 with the Spurs. I like Portland at home. Spunky home team. Lakers, long layoff. Line goes from 5.5 to 4.5. I think Portland keeps it close at home. I'll take them plus the points. And I gave you one in Major League Baseball. Going to be throwing a lot of futures between baseball and college basketball coming your way over the next few weeks. The Boston Red Sox over 84.5 wins on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It pains me to say it, but I think the Boston Red Sox are going to be a playoff team and a pain in the neck for my New York Yankees all season long. That's going to do it for East Coast Bias. For House, Raheem, JJ, signing off. Enjoy your Thursday. Thank goodness. Basketball is back. Be good, everybody.